Hi guys, today we are going to create CRUD RESTful API in Node Backend for our ticket system. Before jumping to the code, let me quickly show you what is the end result of the tutorial today. So we are going to create the API endpoint for the ticket, and we are going to follow the RESTful API convention by using the same URI but changing the appropriate verb. The code will be like this here. So this is the code, and what's going to happen is that when we go to client, let's say client application here, client can open a new ticket by requesting a create ticket to this URL endpoint with the post method. So if client sends this following message to this endpoint, it will create a new ticket. Say here, new ticket has been created successfully. And if you check in our database, the ticket will be created here like so. And if client wants to request all of his tickets, he can request to the following API endpoint with the GET request. If client sends the request, client will get all of his ticket here. And client can also request the single ticket by going to this URL endpoint. And if client sends the request to this URL endpoint with the ticket ID, client will receive the full information about that ticket from database. And if client wants to send the conversation message, client can simply send the message and their name to this URL endpoint with put method. When client sends this message to this URL endpoint with the ticket, it will say your message is updated. And if we check in our database and refresh it, you will see the message is in the conversation array. First message was this one when ticket was created, and when client responds later on, updated message, this will be added in the array. If client is happy with the ticket and all the problem is resolved, now client can request for to close the ticket by sending to this URL endpoint with the ticket ID as a patch method. And if they sends the request, the ticket status is updated here and ticket has been closed. And if we go in database and refresh it, now the status is closed. If client wants to delete the ticket, simply client can request this URL endpoint with the ticket ID and send the request. It will delete the ticket from database and they will get the response message saying ticket has been deleted, which we can confirm by going to database. If we refresh this ticket, it will be gone. So the ticket has been deleted. So that's how we're going to implement a full CRUD system for the ticket throughout the tutorial. Hey, if you don't know me, my name is Prem Acharya from Dented Code. I create tutorial related to full stack web development. If you are interested, please subscribe the channel and turn on all the notification. With that saying, let's jump into the computer. Okay guys, let's start with the README file here. So this is what we are going to do. We are going to create the API routes for the b1/ticket. We will have 6 routes. If you can see, we have exactly b1/ticket on all of them, but we have a different verb. So that is the standard for RESTful API convention. So we are going to create all of them, and we have a description here. What is the URL endpoint gonna work? Okay, so in the delete we don't need, so I'm gonna delete that and set the file. Guys, before we start coding, if you don't know what is CRUD, let me give you a quick explanation of it. CRUD stands for create, read, update, and delete. So this is the query you can do over your database table. So in our case, we will going to do create ticket, read ticket, update ticket, delete ticket from our database. So that's what the CRUD is, just in case if you are still new to the CRUD concept. So with that done, let's go ahead and start building the actual route. So let's go to the routers folder, and we have ticket.routers.js. If you have been following along, you probably have this folder file already. If it is not, you can create this file now. And inside this file, all we are doing here is importing Express, and we are defining router to handle all our router. And I have defined here router.all. What it does is that it will capture all the routes that is coming for this specific route endpoint, and we can simply always return the message from here. Or if you want to go to the another router URI, we can always pass to the next router with just the calling function next. So in our case, of course, we're going to do that. So I'm going to comment this out and save like that. So next we are going to let's have a look what we're going to do. Actually, you know what? Let me write the workflow of this tutorial. So this is going to be our workflow for today. So we're basically going to create the URL endpoints for all of that 6 of them, and we will receive the new ticket data from client. We have to authorize every time user sends the data with the JSON web token, because this is the private route. And then we will insert them into the Mongo database, and we will retrieve all the tickets for that specific user. We have a ticket of retrieving a single ticket from the database. We have to update that ticket. Conversation message, like when client sends the message or operator sends the message, we need to update those messages within the same ticket. and we will update the ticket status, and we will delete the ticket if we need. But in the case of ticket CRM system, we shouldn't delete any ticket, but just the sake of this tutorial, so that you guys also know how you can delete the ticket, I'm gonna do it anyway. Okay guys, so let's do the create URL endpoints. So here what I'm gonna do, simply say router dot post method, because we are going to receive the data. So we're going to have a post method and simply put /, it will, and then we always receive request and response. And I'm just gonna simply say rest.json for now and say message to do create new ticket. Okay, so only by putting / how it's gonna work. Let me show you. Let me save this file. So if you go to our app.js, we have load this router here as a ticket router. So this is the file path, router/ticket.router, which is here. And we have used this router here and telling our Express, saying, hey Express, if you see any router call that starts with b1/ticket, please forward to this file. So anything else comes behind this one will be handled within this file, which is here. So let me delete that. And so by doing this, basically what happens, if we call this URL endpoint here like so, it will capture in our this line of the code, and it will forward all the routes request to this file, which we are working on it now. So just want to show you how it works. Let me just quickly show you the what it happens when you make a call. So in this tutorial, I'm gonna use the software called Postman to make a call for all the router endpoint. Okay, let's run the application first. So okay, I have run the application here, which is ready on http/localhost 3001 the port is, and we are calling that server, and b1/ticket is our router endpoint, right? So let's call that, and we don't need to type anything further, because this one, if we say, so if we want to send just the post request, we can change the verb and send this, and you can see to do create new ticket is returned back from the server status 200, okay, which is coming from here. So now this one is done. Now we can do all of our logic here to create the actually receive the ticket and insert into database. Let's do this to person. I'm gonna just paste here. I'm just writing these comments so that you guys don't get lost while we switching between the files and continue writing codes. Okay, so let's send the ticket first, right? So what are we going to send from our client is, so in our post we will have go to the body, go to the raw, and choose the JSON from the select here, and from our client we will send the subject of the ticket, yes, and sender name, which is in my case my name, and the actual message that to be stored in database. So let's say client has a form issue, he can say his name and then message contact form is not working, please fix it as soon as possible. That's the message client gonna send to us. And let's capture that message. So this message will come in our request.body, that you can simply do const, we have subject sender message coming from request.body. And now if you just want to confirm, you can do so by console.log, and you can just print the console.body just to see what's coming here. Maybe I can make side by side here. I have a space like that. Okay, let's send this request, and now you can see in our console that we have the exactly same object coming, which we are sending from our client. So this is, we are just destructuring from the body.request those values. So now we got this part is done as well, and so this part is done, and now we need to do is insert in our Mongo database. So before we insert in our Mongo database, we have to create the schema, which is kind of table for the database or collection in terms of Mongo terms, and then we have to define the collection schema, and we have to define what value you want to put in the database. So let's do that. Let's go in our model here and create a folder name called ticket, and inside ticket we will have two files. One ticket.schema.js, and the another file is the ticket.js. Okay, the file is created. So what I'm gonna do, go to the schema file, and I'm gonna borrow some code from our user schema. So I'm gonna copy this all first and paste in our ticket schema, and I'll go line by line to explain you what we doing, why we doing. So here we need to import Mongoose from Mongoose library. It provides us schema where we can create the table inside. as object. So once you get the schema out of the Mongo schema, we define this one. Let's say we say ticket schema here, and that's the new schema, and inside here we create an object. These are the field in our database. So in our case, if you go to our client, we are getting subject, sender, and message. So we are going to save those value with many more other things. So in our database, what are we going to store is definitely first I'm gonna go one more step up here. I'm gonna need to save the client ID, actually which client has opened this ID or which client is associated to this ticket. So simply do client ID. So we need to define the types. Whenever you define the schema for your database, you need to define the types of your field here. So this one going to be object ID type. So let's do schema dot types dot object ID, and we will need the subject of the ticket, subject, that's the string type, and maximum length maybe 100, and require true. And whenever you put require, maybe it's a good idea to provide default just to prevent some problem later on. Just leave empty. And we also need subject, and we need the ticket open date, open at, and it's going to be a date type. I'll just copy from here. So the type is date, require true, and then default is that date.now will give us the date of whenever data is inserted here. It will put the date and time of that time. So that's what we need. And we need status. Actually for status I can utilize this one. So it's gonna be string, maybe status will be 30, require true, and I want to provide default. I'm gonna say we'll talk more about this later, but for now I'm gonna say pending operator response. That's all for the status. And here what we're gonna need is, let me delete rest of the schema here. So we got the client ID, we got subject, we have where the date of the ticket open date, we have ticket open date, and we have the status. So we need the conversation history now. Conversation, this one will be the collection of the object. So in our object now we have to define like this way. If we have multiple object to be stored in a array, define like so. And again we need to pass the property that we're gonna have in our message history. So what we're gonna need is, definitely we're gonna need a message, and the string, it is a string type. Let's provide thousands for the character length, require true, and then default value, just leave it empty. And we need to know who is sending this message, operator or the client. So let's do sender. They will simply just put the name. So this is also type string. I'm gonna just copy and paste here. And probably we're gonna need 50 maybe. I haven't seen any name character longer than 50, so hopefully that will do. Make sure you put comma, and we will put the date when this message was replied. So message at, and this is going to be type date. So simply let's copy from this date and save that. So let me quickly go over here. So we are importing Mongoose here. We have defined the schema that Mongoose provide from mongoose.schema, and inside the schema we can provide what value we are going to store, and we are creating this one as a variable called ticket schema. And inside here we are storing client ID, which is the type of the object. So we have to provide the type, and other options are optional whether you want to put or not. So we need subject, we have this the string type and max length with of 100, and it's required true, and default is empty string. We also have the open date of the ticket, we have a status of the ticket, and we will have the list of the conversation in our conversation array. So that's all is done here. And now we need to pass this variable down here, and this is the table name. So we are going to write ticket. So this is the collection name for our database, and this is how we define the database, saying mongoose.model, and we now export this model as a ticket schema here, so that we can call this model and do the query over this database. So this is done. Let's go to our ticket module, and here what we need to do is, first thing is we need to import that ticket schema. So do const ticket schema require, to simply require, and then put the file path, which is ticket schema. And now let's start creating the function that does the query in the database. So the first one, we will say const insert ticket. So we will have a ticket object. That's a new ticket object. We will receive that as a parameter. And now we can do the query. So I want to run in try catch block in case if we run into some weird situation where we can simply reject the error. And I want to create this one. I want to return the promises. So to do that, we need to do return new promises, and we have a two options. Either we will resolve data or reject the error. That's a definitely error function, and put try catch block inside that promise. And here now, if you want to store the data, the way we do is we first call the schema and call the method called save and pass the parameter or object that we want to store in our database. And we will have two of one thing. So we will have then, or we will have catch. So if the insert is successfully without any issue, we will receive data. So data that we have inserted in our database. And now we can simply resolve this data, or we will have an error. So we can simply reject that error. We don't even need this curly bracket. We can simply do like this to return it. So, and if we have any system error, we can reject that too. Say reject error from here. Okay, let's export this function down here to module.exports and put in the parenthesis and save it, because we are going to have a multiple function here. So we are going to export as a function, sorry, as an object, and we'll destructure and import this one in our ticket.router. So go on the top here, let me import here. So const insert ticket require from our module / ticket / the ticket module. And what we can do now is go down here and call that function and pass the result value. So I'm going to say const result equals to, we can await and then pass the data here. So we need to work on that data a little bit. Before that, make sure you make this function async, otherwise it will throw the error. So let's create the data in a variable called, let's say, ticket obj and create an object. So we have these three things. If you look in our schema, the way we have defined the schema, we need to send the data in exactly same structure. So we will have the client ID, we need subject, we don't need to provide open at. Since we have provided default value as a date.now, this one will store the current date and time when the ticket is inserted. And we need status. So we need client ID, subject, status, and conversation. So let's do that here. So we need client ID. Client ID for now, I'm gonna get from database. Let me quickly show you. So if we go to our ticket system database, if you go to user, we have one user only. So I'm gonna use this ID. Later on, we will get this ID from our JSON Web Token, but when we have to check for the authorization. But for now, I'm just gonna copy that and let's provide that here. So this one will come from the JSON Web Token later on, okay? And we need subject. So the subject is coming from the client, and what else we need? Client ID subject. We don't need to provide this one. Database will handle that. And we need status. You know what? Let me open side by side. Easy for me to check. Okay. If you don't know how to open side by side, just simply press Ctrl and \. It will open the file on the right hand side. And then we need conversation. Status is coming from, okay, status. You know what? Since it's the opening ticket only, creating new ticket, we are already providing the default value pending operator response. So that will do. We don't even need to provide the status for creating ticket. But we do need conversation, where it's a array, and inside the array we will have an object defined like so. And here we need sender. That's the sender name. Like we'll look into the data at the front later on. We need sender, and we need message that coming from client, and then the message replied date. I'll just say at, and this one also is already defined in our schema. saying default value, so it will insert the date and time when the data is inserted here. So we don't need that as well. So simply say sender message. I think that will probably do. Just save that, and let's see. Client ID, okay, subject is coming from here, sender coming from here, message coming from here, and now we pass this ticket object to our insert ticket and then save the file. And now what happens if we get result dot underscore ID? That means if everything goes fine here, we'll get result dot ID here. So we can now say, let me copy that, return I'm gonna say status success, and let me close this, and the message say new ticket has been created. Okay, and if not, if we don't have that ID, then we will say it's status error, and then unable to create the ticket, please try again later. We'll do that. And since we are throwing the error from the try catch on our model here, it's a good idea to run this whole especially this person in try catch. Let's run whole thing in try catch. So copy everything we have done here until this point and put that inside the try, and if it is catch, we say same thing. We can even send, actually here I'm gonna send the error dot message. Save that. Now it should handle everything. So let's try to send and see. We will probably gonna get few errors, and then we'll go through them to make it work. So let's make sure we send subject, sender, and message from our client. Let's go to our post method ticket. We have subject, sender, client, and if you go to our database, we don't have any collection name called ticket, so it should be created when we send the request if it works. So let's send that request. Okay, error promise is not defined. Okay, that's a spelling error. I can see that, which is in the user collects here model. Yeah, that should be capital, promise like that. Save that and send it again. Ticket.save is not a function. Let's go to ticket again. Oops, this ticket value should be provided to the ticket schema and then call the same method. Okay, that was a little bit confusing there. So we first call the schema and pass the ticket object, and then we call the method called save. Now send it. New ticket has been created successfully. That means we have our ticket created. Let's see, we should have done console log to see how it looks. Let me do console log in our router. When we have a result here, let me do console.log result. I want to show you something. We already have this data in our ticket here. Now if we refresh our database, we should see tickets table, and inside ticket table we have a ticket here. So let's send one more time, and if you see in our console, now you can see the ID of the conversation and also ID for this whole object, and we have a client ID as well, and this is the open date, and this is the message state. So next time when the client replies, we'll update here, and if operator replies, we update here, and then we'll have the date for the each response. So that is done. Let's go back to our ticket router. We don't need this the console. I just wanted to show you that. So our ticket, this one is C part of the CRUD is done, let's say. So our you know what, I'm gonna write in the commit in the staging area so that you can see the commit history to see this exactly code when you check in the Git repo. So I'm saying create new ticket API added. That should be enough information for you to check if you want to do so. Okay, so our this part is done. Now let's work on getting ticket. So let's do these two. One gets all the tickets and another one gets individual ticket. Actually, before doing that, we need to verify the user, authorize the user. If you have been following along, I have already created user authorization middleware here in previous tutorial. What it does is that it will receive the request response and next, because we call as a middleware, and we have an authorization header where we have client has to send the JSON web token, and we verify if JSON web token is valid or not. If JSON web token is valid, it always have email in the payload. We check whether there is email or not. If it does, then it's a valid token. and also we are going to get the user ID from the Redis database, because the way we store JSON web token in the Redis database is that we use the JSON web token as a key and user ID as a value. So we will have user ID. If there is no user ID, then we will respond back to client saying 403. That means forbidden request. And then we will provide this user ID, and we will add on our request object, and we will forward our router to next middleware, which will eventually come to our function here. So let's do that and call that middleware here. I'm going to call here. So say const user authorization require. It's in the middleware folder. Let's go to our middleware, and it's user authorization middleware, and we can call that one simply passing here. So this is how the middleware works. As long as a router catches here, it will start running all the middleware from left to right. So if this one passed through, if the request passed through this middleware, we will get to this function. Actually not in here, sorry guys, it's in the create new one ticket. And since we are passing our user ID here, if you see in our request, now we can access this person on our from the request as well. So let me show you now. If we do console.log here, okay, let's do the request. Now what happens is that if we send the request now, we will get 403 error message. They forbidden 403 because we are not attaching our middle or our JSON web token. So that means client has to be logged in before they send the request. So let's do that. Let's go to our client login URL endpoint. We have email and password. When we send the login information, we will get the fresh access and refresh token. So we only gonna need access token, copy that and go to our post request, and in the authorization header, let's go to the header and put authorization here, pass that value, and now send the request. And let me show you. Now we have got status success, new ticket has been created. And if we go to our console, now you can see name the one we sent from our client side, but we didn't get the client ID because instead of console logging our let's go to the router here. So authorization, we pass the value in request.user ID, not in request.body. So let's go back here. Instead of request.body, it should be in request.user ID. So now if we make another request, now we should see the user ID in our client in our console. So instead of now passing this static value, now we can pass this request.user ID as a variable called, let's say, UID or user ID, and just give it pass this value to this variable and pass this one here and save that. And let's do one more test. Before doing that, let's I'm gonna delete these tickets and then get back to you quickly. Okay, we don't have any ticket in our table now. So if we send our new ticket request from our client, we have now authorization token, we have our body, we have that data. If you send this, it's saying ticket is created successfully. Now if we go to our database and refresh this table, there you go, we have our ticket is created. So this is all perfect. Now let's move on. I'm just gonna leave that, and now let's start working on getting ticket. So which is this one, get all ticket and get specific ticket. So let's go to our ticket router. So you see this user authorization middleware. So we are going to use on each route endpoint from now, okay? And we are going to get user ID like so, and we will use this user ID to do further query. So I'm gonna go second line. Let's copy everything we have done here in this router, and then we just make few modification. So now we can say get all ticket, and instead of creating ticket, get all tickets, but for a specific user only. That user we are going to determine from the JSON web token. Now we will not receive anything here. Okay, first thing first, this is get method, and we will run the async method and we'll receive request and response. We'll run in the try catch block, so we don't need anything here. We are not receiving any data. We are, however, getting this user ID, and we don't need object. So but what we need to do, let's go to our, I don't need this, go to our ticket model here. Now instead of insert ticket, let's copy that one and create a new function called get ticket. Get tickets actually, because we are going to get all the ticket, and we will need here user ID because we are going to do query user ID. So in our database, if you see here client ID, so we are going to source based on the client ID. The query we are going to use here is called simply call the schema. We don't need to call the function here, so delete that and delete this parenthesis as well. But instead of .save, we have to call the query called find one, and here we need to provide the source criteria in object. So what we have here is the let's receive as a client ID. So we pass this client ID. Basically we have to pass the property and the value. So like so, since we have a same name for the client ID, property and value, I can simply use like this client ID. So we call the ticket schema and say find one and provide the source criteria, or not find one, find just to find, and pass this sourcing criteria. If it finds any data, it will respond as a data here, and then we resolve the data. If not, we'll have error, and if anything crashes, we have that the rejected data here. And let's export this function here, and we import this one in our ticket router. So what we're gonna need is in our get all tickets, instead of insert ticket, we pass the get tickets, and we have user ID, pass this user ID here. And now we can definitely do console log to see what's coming, and we can also pass these tickets in our response. So we are not sending any message here. We can also we can send the message say success if we have ticket, and we can send the actual list of ticket here. And we wouldn't have ticket underscore ID, we will have ticket.length because it's the array. So what happens that if there is any ticket, that means we have a ticket. Ticket.length will give this one. If there's no ticket, we don't have to say error. Actually, we don't even need this person. We can simply return like so. We send whatever result is there, we just send the result. Save this one and then make a call to our get method and see what we're gonna get. And remember that we need to send the authorization header. Okay, so let's create another one here. I'm gonna create I'm gonna use this one. That should be get method in our ticket, so we don't need any data to be sent, and make sure our authorization header is added. So let's go back to our post and copy this token and go back to our get ticket, and in our header again type the authorization here as a key and value as a token. And in our body we don't have anything. Try to send and see if we have any problem. Okay, forbidden, that's fine. That seems like ticket is expired. Let's sign in again and get the new ticket, sorry, new token. I think we expiring ticket every 15 minutes, so that's probably been more than 15 minutes since we created access token last time. So let's go back to our get method, and on our header update this value, delete that and put the new one and send the request. Okay, error, get ticket is not defined. Okay, I have definitely forgotten something here. Get ticket is not defined, that's not imported on the top of our header. So let me import that. So it is in our ticket model. I can simply pass alongside to insert ticket and make a request again, and there you go, we have the ticket. Since we only have one ticket, we are getting one ticket. Let's check in database, refresh, one ticket. Let's insert one more ticket here. Let's go back to our post method to insert the new ticket. Okay, the token, we have to update the token, guys. I'm gonna get the token from here and send it. Ticket has been created. Now let's pull the tickets, send the request. Now you can see we have a multiple tickets. So this one is a result as an object, sorry, array, and this object starts here, finishes here, and another ticket starts here and finishes here. There you go, guys. We have created our get all tickets route as well. So now I can also commit this one. Let me go ticket route, remove these few things here, retrieve all the ticket for a specific user is done, and let me remove this console and save the file. I'm going to quickly write the comment for commit in the stage so that you have the commit message if you want to compare the code. So I have said that get all tickets API added. Okay, now let's go to our readme file. This is done. Now let's get a specific ticket, because when client want to view the detail of specific ticket, they have to request to a specific ticket. Okay, we can get ticket as a get method. Okay, let's do that. So to do that, we need to go to our router here, and let's copy this one and let's say we're gonna need this one, but here we need to provide, I'm gonna say ticket ID. So I'm gonna show you what we have in the ticket ID. Now if you go down here and if you do console.log and say request.params, the value will come as a params, as a parameter. Params, we're gonna see this value coming. Let's copy one of the ticket. We go to our Postman, and now we're going to create another one. Actually, you know what? We can do same in the same API call. We have a ticket ID here. Let me call this ticket ID. Copy that ticket ID and just pass the ticket ID here like so, and send the request and see what happens. See here at the bottom. Now this is coming from here. So request.params, like if you see before, whenever we send the post request, the value comes in the requested body. But if you make a get request, it comes in the param, get a request.params, if you come like that. So this colon means this is the variable we have defined. If you have multiple variable, you can do multiple like this and then write the variable name. You can do multiple variable in the URL as well. So since we have the user what you call ticket ID, now we can simply say here, I'm gonna say const actually ticket ID, or I can even say underscore ID because I'm gonna use it as underscore later. So equals to request.param dot, we need to pass this one, or you can also do directly underscore ID here, and you can do like that and pass here underscore ID, or you can simply destructure the value here like so. It should give us the ID. Okay, now we have the ticket ID. I don't need that now. So we can call the get ticket. Is that the get ticket? Get tickets, and we need client ID. Now, okay, we need to create another function. Let's copy that. That's getting all the tickets. Now we need to get ticket ID by ID. Get ticket by ID, let's say. And we have a client ID, and we will have underscore ID as well, which is ticket ID. So that's what we are going to pass here. So let's pass here underscore ID, and then we have the user ID here. You know what? Just let me write the same name so that you don't get confused. So client ID we getting from our JSON web token, and we passing client ID and then the ticket ID here. Save that, and what happens when we go to our ticket here, we will receive this ticket ID and client ID. Now our search criteria is this two. We are searching based on the client ID and ticket ID. So in our database there will be like many tickets that belongs to different clients, right? So we need to search based on the client ID and the actual ticket ID. If the combination matches together, then only return those tickets back to the client. That way we preventing accessing to somebody else's ticket. So let's do that. If it does fine, it will respond the data. Other than that, it will return the error. So if we go to our database, okay, we have a ticket, right? Let's copy the first ticket. Let's change, I'm gonna quickly change some message here and update that. And let's call this ticket. Let's get this, copy this ticket ID. I'm gonna put it down. And now, oops, okay. Let's copy, let's export this get ticket by ID here. Save the file. Let's go to our ticket router, and we need to call that here. I'm gonna copy that and then import in our file. And now we can use that function down here. Instead of get tickets, now we can simply say get ticket by ID, and we have a ID of the ticket and client. And let's send this request from our client here. Save the file, and from client here, let me copy the, let me go back to database. I want to copy that ID. So I just type here some extra data so that we know we are getting this ticket only. So here, what is it? In our client, so all we need to send is this ticket ID here, and send that. There you go. That's the response coming back from our API. See, we are only getting one ticket, and that ticket has that extra message I put in our database. There you go, guys. We are successfully getting a single ticket as well. So yeah, I think that's all. We don't need to do anything else here. I'm just gonna put in the state so that you guys can see. So I have said here, get single ticket API added in our message, just in case you want to see that. Okay, that's done. Let's go to our router again. This one is done as well. So we need the update the ticket details reply message. Okay, now ticket is open. Now the next stage is that the operator the operator will respond back to the client, or client will keep sending the message to the operator, or they will have a message one after another one. So what we have to do, if you check in our database here, if you see in our conversation, there is an object which is data sent by the client initially. So we have to add up new message every time they have communication here. Let's create the function that helps us to add the message inside this array one after another. Okay, let's do that. For that, we need to create this I'm going to call put method on the exactly same router endpoint as this one. So let's go back to our router and let's copy all of this. I'm going to simply copy this one. If you are not sure how I'm copying all this, I'm using Shift Alt and down arrow button in Windows to copy all the selected value. So we have the client v1 ticket / the ticket ID. That's what we need. Now I need to provide the method called put. Now say put. So in here I'm gonna say update reply message from client, and we are going to get the params as usual. We will get the client ID as usual, and here we are going to create new function. We are not getting ticket now. We are, let me make lowercase this one, getting new function. Let's say update client reply, and we will send we will have few things. So here we are going to get, let me here say const message sender, and that will be sent from the requested body. Okay guys, I'm going to show you in a second, because we need the message and senders that client sends to update the conversation, and we will have all of this value coming as well. And here we're going to send, I'm going to send as an object, because if you have more than 2 or 3 variable you want to pass to the another function, it's always better to use as an object. And now we got client ID, we got client ticket ID, client ID. Okay, in this case we don't need client ID. We can simply all use the ticket ID only. We can, now we know what is the ticket ID coming from the client. We can use ticket ID only to search. Okay, we don't need to send the client ID. Now we need to send message, definitely that to be updated, and the sender. If you check our schema here in the message, we need, what is it, conversation, we need sender and message. The date is updated automatically. So let's send ID, message and sender, and we haven't created this function yet. Let's go up there and we call that function, and then we will create that in the model, ticket model file. Save that file and go to the ticket here. We're gonna get error here somewhere later, but let's fix that. So we export that function, and what I want to do is I'm gonna copy this whole function and change the name of the function first. Let's change the name of the function, and remember we have provided 2 parameters here, actually 3 parameters here. Let's get them here as well. We will destructure here so that we can use them straight away. Now our source criteria is just ID. Now once we find that ticket, now we need to provide another object. Okay, when we do query, we need to do find one and update is here. So this is the method we need to call to update the existing object in the database. So first we have to send the sourcing criteria, and second we have to send what value we want to update, and third is optional, whether you want to return the updated value once the operation is completed or not. In that case I would like to do yes, new, true. Okay, this one will respond, like when we have a data coming here, it will be newly updated object here. So I'll say so, and let's do the update query. To update here, we need to update 2 things. One, we need to update the status here. We need to make sure the status is pending operator response, because this is the client who updates the message, right? So next operator has to respond on that. So first, simply do status, and I'm gonna hardcode this message for now, pending operator response. And the another value we are updating is, since we have to push the new object in our already existed array here, we have to call this operator called push that you define with the $sign and say push, and you pass the object what do you want to do. So in push, where we are pushing data is in our conversation. So pass that conversation and pass that message. Actually we need message and sender, so you can do like message and sender and save that. So this one should work. If not, we'll get error and we'll fix them. Let's give it a try. And if we have a result here, again we can always do, if there is a result, we will have underscore ID because this is a single ticket updated. And now we can simply say success in message, say you're updated, and we don't need return here. So we can say error. If there is no ticket, we can say status error and message unable to update your message, please try again later. And now save the file and let's make a call. And okay, now we are making call in different, right? So remember our endpoint is put method, so we need to create new method here, new call here, call, let's say, let me copy this. We're going to need everything here because our API endpoint is v1/ticket and then ticket ID, and what method is definitely put, and we're gonna need the header, authorization header. Just copy that and put authorization here. Oh, sorry, not here, it must be, untick that guys, go to header and here, and the value here. In our body, go to the body section and go to the raw and make sure you select the JSON file. Here we need to send what we are expecting here, message and sender. Let's send that as an object, so make sure it's a JSON valid data. So I'm gonna say the sender name again, my name is Prem. We could have get this one from our database when we have a user ID coming, but sends the name from client side so that we avoid to do one more query to database, which is not really important. Okay, now let's send and see how many error we're gonna come up with. Okay, forbidden, that means our token is expired again. Let's go and log in and send the login detail, get the new token. This is the benefit of guys having JSON web token. So that means if anybody get your token and then try to manipulate your account, they can't. After every 15 minutes it expires. So I need to go back to header and update our token and send the data. Oh wow, it's working. So status success message, your message has been updated, no error in our console. Let's check in our database and see if there is any data added or not. I think this one, probably this one. There you go, you can see there are two messages. One is the contact form is not working, which was initial, you can check the date. And the object one is how is the fixing process going, please update me as soon as possible. Great guys, that means our update message is done as well. So next time this one, when we are working on the admin section, admin will see this message and responds to this message, and it will be added here. And when clients log into his account to check the ticket, you will see all this conversation and he will have opportunity to add the ticket or close the ticket. Okay, this person is done as well guys. I need to mark this one as done as well. I'm trying to move as quick as possible, but I also want to make sure you understand the concept as well. So now we need to do close ticket and then delete ticket. So let's do the close ticket part. So this one is patch. I don't need to put this one, but just to avoid this confusion later on, patch means you can patch anything. Now we are patching the status here. Maybe later on you might have to patch something else. In that case, this one gonna be a little bit problem. So I am defining this one here just to make sure that we are calling the right URL endpoint for right patch. So let's copy that and let's work on it. I'm gonna save this file, go to user router again. Let's copy the put method here and copy that whole thing and update the comment, say close ticket stat. Okay, that's that. Update ticket status to close. So that means if client is happy, he wants to close the ticket, then let them close, right? That's great for the operator, no more headache. Okay, everything is as usual. This one we put patch now. It's for our requirement. We need ticket ID and we need to verify user, and everything is same here. We don't need the message or anything in our body. We are just getting these two param and client ID. And now we are going to create a new function, and we need to actually call the URL endpoint, which is close-ticket. This is what we have defined in our README, because that's what we want to do. Let's say, okay, update, I'm going to say update status close, and send the ID that is coming from here, ticket ID, and then the client ID here. So I want to tell you one more thing. There might be a chance that somebody tried to manipulate our system. This is kind of a loophole here. If you just send the ticket ID, and if client can have access to this URL endpoint and just send the ID of somebody else's ticket, they can manipulate and update others' ticket as well. So if you want to avoid that case, we can pass the client ID, and when we do the source ticket, we always do the combination of ID, actually ticket ID, and the user ID. That way no one can manipulate. I didn't do this one in here, which, okay, this is the homework for you guys. Try to do and see if you can send the client ID as well in this function, and then search based on the ID and client ID, and then do the update. Okay, I just try to show you a few different ways that you can do it, and then I'm saying why we need to do that. That's what I did. Okay, here we have update status close, and here I'm gonna send ID and client ID. We don't need message and sender. This way, this one will resolve the object if everything goes fine, and we can definitely do this, take underscore ID, and if success, then we can say the ticket has been closed. And other than that, if there is an error, we say unable to update the ticket. Save that file, and let's call this endpoint with the ticket from our put method. So now we will have ticket slash close ticket here, and then the ID, which you can see the pattern here exactly. The first b1 slash ticket coming from the app.js file, close ticket is our URI, and then the ID. And then we don't need to send anything in our body. Make sure this path is patched now. Oops, you know what? I should have created a new one. Let me copy this whole thing, create the new patch. I'm gonna select patch here, put this URL ID, and we don't need to send anything, but we need to send in our header, we need to send the authorization header. Remember the key, we need to say send. Let's grab that one from here. I hope this is not expired. Let's do quick. And now if I try to call, hang on, we need to create this function, but we haven't created this one. Let's create this function and call in our file. I'm gonna do it like that, save it, and then go. I'm gonna export that function name, which we haven't created yet, and let's copy this updated client reply and change the function name to update status close. And here we have a what we have, ID, and I think client. Let's get the correct name. We have a client ID here. So ID and client ID. Now our source criteria is the ID and client ID. So we need to call same find one and update method. We have ID and client ID, and the status we need to mark as closed. Oops, closed, and we don't need this one, and we do want to return the new object after the status is closed. Now let's send that and see how it works. Rest everything is same. Okay, so let's go to our client side application and make a call to the API endpoint with this now patch. Oops, and make sure I put patch in our router, otherwise we will have an error. Okay, yeah, there is a patch, and let's make a request and see. Okay, everything went well, which normally doesn't happen. So status successful matches the ticket has been closed. You can see that there is no error in our console. Let's check the database. So if you see our status on both of the ticket, pending operator response. Now if I refresh, one of this one will have a status close, which is this ticket. Now you can see status close. Now this one is done as well. I'm gonna say this. Now we have one more last to do. So normally in CRM ticket system, as I said before, we won't have option to delete the ticket. We close the ticket and that's it. But just to show you, since we are doing CRUD for our REST API, you need to know how to delete that too. So let's create this endpoint with the delete bug. Okay. How about probably I'm gonna quickly write in the stays message commit message so that you can have a look as well, right? I'll do it in a second and I'll get back to you. Okay, I just did that, and now let's go to our ticket router and let's copy everything, and let me update that to delete ticket. And here we will have a ticket ID. We need to authorize the user. Everything is same. Now our method is delete. Make sure you use that, and we will get the ticket ID and client ID from authorization header and the URL params. And now we will call new function which we haven't created yet, say delete ticket, and we're going to pass client ID and the user ticket ID. We could only pass ticket ID, but again, as I said, if somebody wants to manipulate your system, that's a loophole. They can send the ticket, somebody else ticket ID, and then send it, and then since you are not verifying whether the ticket ID belongs to client or not, they can delete anybody else ticket. So that's not good. So send both of them, and let's import this function which we haven't created yet, guys. And let's import here and go to this file and export here and copy this old function and update the function name. We are getting exactly same. Now here we can say, instead of find one and update, we say find one and delete, like so. And we don't need to provide the second parameter or third. Simply pass the search criteria, search option, and if there is no ticket found, it will return the null. So let's save that, and then I will check this one here, and here we need to make a little bit modification here. Now delete that, remove that, and we don't even need this one. Simply say ticket has been deleted. Now let's call our endpoint here. Now we need to create one more for delete. I'm going to copy whole thing here, and we need to pass the authorization header. Hopefully it's not expired. Let's do it quickly. I think it's not still 15 minutes, but never know. And pass the value and send the request. Resources not found. Definitely not. Somehow I need to provide all. You guys would have seen this, but let me do it now. Forbidden. Okay, our token is expired. Let's log in again, get the new token and update our token here and make a call. And there you go, status success, the ticket has been deleted. Let me show you in the console what it looks like. So it's sending us the actual ticket, this one, before deleting. So if we check this ticket ID here, which ending with 2C4 in our database, it will not exist anymore, which is this one, 2C4. If we refresh this, it's gone. So now next time, let's say if we send the same data again, this doesn't happen in the client case, but if somebody wants to try to play up with your API, they might send that invalid ticket, and let's say what happens in that case. When you send that, they say the ticket has been deleted successfully, because we are not checking anything else here, because we don't need to tell the ticket is not exist there, blah blah blah. But in the database you can see it says null because ticket is not found. That means it's not error. That's okay to leave. You can do some manipulation saying that blah blah blah, that is not required, so just leave that. That's good enough. I'm gonna remove this one and save that, and our delete person is done too. Hey, we made it. Okay, so that's all we need. So I'm gonna add all of them in our stage now. Delete ticket API is added, and now I'm gonna push to Git straight away so that you have a code ready there. Git push. There you go, guys. There is the repo link, which I'll put in the description below as well. So now we successfully done our CRUD whole process. If you are still confused, let me know in the comment section and I'll get back to you. So everything is written here, what we are going to do, and everything is done in our ticket router. It's a big file. There you go. So we have retrieved the ticket from Mongo's database using get all the tickets and getting a specific ticket from user, and then we have updated the message conversation reply using put method here, and we did the update ticket status to close using patch method here, and we have deleted the ticket from database here. So all of our work has been done that we have initially thought we are going to do. So that is all, guys. Great work, guys. I'm here to quickly update that. I just realized after pushing the code to Git Repo, realized that we have put close ticket here as a delete, which we don't need that. This is not our plan. So when I copied the whole thing from patch, we forgot to remove this one. So let's remove this person and save the file. Now everything should work. But when we call from the client, make sure you also remove that and then just leave the ticket slash the ticket ID. Now it should delete the ticket. If you want to confirm that, let's go to our database, refresh it and get the ticket ID, and let's go to here in our client and make a call to our delete endpoint without any extra URI after ticket, and let's send it. The ticket has been deleted. There you go. So that's what I just wanted to update that. I'll update that in the commit and I'll again push to the Git repo. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you liked the tutorial. If you did, then please give me a thumbs up. If you have any question or query, please write me in the comment section below. I'll try to respond as soon as possible. Or you can also join me in the Discord channel. The link is in the description below. And in the next tutorial, we are going to continue with this ticket route and we'll try to complete this. And we will going to add server-side validation for all the incoming data. Till then, guys, stay cool, do code every day, and I'll see you on the next tutorial. Bye for now.